Hello and welcome to our country vodcast of Brazil. In this vodcast, we'll be talking about Brazil's geography, population, economy, environmental issues, and major health concerns.
Brazil is along the eastern part of South America. It has a surface area of 8,514,877 square kilometers and is the ninth largest country in the world. The climate is mostly tropical, but has a temperate climate in the southern parts of Brazil. It has a very diverse ecosystem including rainforests, highlands, river basins, and wetlands. The Amazonian rainforest is in the process of being heavily deforested and is causing a major detriment to the ecosystem in Brazil. The terrain is mostly flat but can be mountainous around the southern parts within the thin coastline. The mean elevation is 320 meters, with the highest point being 2,994 meters at Pico da Neblina and the lowest point being 0 meters along the coastline. Bodies of water include the Amazon River, the São Francisco River, and the Pantano, the world's largest wetlands ecosystem. The Amazon River is roughly around 3,200 kilometers long and holds about one-fifth the world's freshwater.
The country Brazil is a developing country with a current population of 205,823,665 diverse people. You see the ethnic groups listed here. The country's population is still growing. You can see this by its age structure because they have a large younger generation with 0 to 14 making up 22% of the population. You can see the rest listed here also. Because of Brazil's large group of younger generations, they will have children and increase the population by a lot. Also, you can see the same thing represented in the age structure graph. Another thing that proves they are growing is that the population growth rate is 0.75%, which is pretty big growth rate for their size. Brazil's birth rate is also relatively high at 14.3 births per 1,000 of their population, and their death rate is lower than their birth rate at 6.6 deaths per 1,000 of their population. This also shows a growing population. Something else that shows they're a developing nation and a growing nation is their infant mortality rate, which is at 18 deaths per 1,000 births, which is relatively high, but on the lower end of other developing nations, which usually have a high infant mortality rate because of their less developed healthcare. Although they are labeled a developing nation, they have aspects that are usually attributed to a developed nation. An example is their life expectancy, which is 73 overall, and 70 for males and 77 for females. Another example is their total fertility rate, which is at 1.76 children born per female. Is pretty low for a developing nation. Their contraceptive rate may have something to do with that. Their contraceptive rate is 80.3%, which is pretty interesting considering their religious composition, which is a high Catholic percent.
Brazil, more of a free market economy, has the largest economy in South America and one of the largest in the world, the ninth largest to be exact. As of this year, they have a gross domestic product of $1.7 trillion, a growth of 0.1%, and a per capita income of $16,096. A recession in 2015 caused a negative growth rate of 3.8%, but Brazil's economy continues to grow. They are the largest coffee bean and sugarcane producer and the second largest producer of soybean, which contributes to the projection that Brazil is one of the fastest growing economies in the world. They also have excellent service and manufacturing sectors, which are major contributors to the country's GDP in addition to the agriculture. With an unemployment rate of 6.8%, it is a higher rate than that of the U.S. While there has been lots of growth in the economy of Brazil, there is also strong economic inequality. Divisions concerning income and race have restrained some of Brazil's potential growth. Brazil's favelas symbolize part of this inequality, as these areas are much poorer and dangerous than other areas of Brazil where there is better income, education, and infrastructure. Northeast Brazil is the most economically disadvantaged and least developed area in Brazil due to low income, adverse climate, and limited public services. In addition, all of those problems lead to even more problems, making it a wicked problem. Generally, women and youth have the worst conditions in Brazil, and poverty is caused by unequal land distribution, lack of education, and lack of specialization. Overall, while Brazil's economy is growing rapidly, there is still much work to do in order to solve the economic inequality problems that plague various areas of Brazil. The growth in Brazil's economy means that agriculture is booming as well as the service and manufacturing sectors, but inequality of race, income, education, and living conditions throughout the country leaves massive potential growth untouched.
Brazil faces many environmental issues. The most pressing issue is deforestation. It affects the world population as the rainforest serves as a major carbon sink or carbon dioxide storage. It functions as a habitat to multiple species of life and provides a natural service producing vast amounts of oxygen. In the 1990s, Brazil was cutting down tracts of rainforest large enough to cover the size of Belgium each year. The main reason for the high amount of deforestation in Brazil is due to the trend of Brazilian agriculture. Soy and cocoa are two of Brazil's largest cash crops and are responsible for 90% of the Atlantic forest ecosystem in southern Brazil being wiped out because of the cocoa boom in the 1970s. Deforestation still remains high, but it dropped from 70% in its record highs. The Amazon basin in Brazil is home to a variety of species and many unknown species waiting to be discovered. Many species face a constant threat of extinction as poaching becomes more popular and deforestation advances. Numerous waterways in Brazil have high levels of pollution due to the dumping of sewage. In Rio de Janeiro waterways, there was a study done by the aquatic Olympic and Paralympic venues before the 2016 Olympics that concluded that viral levels had reached 1.7 million times what would be deemed worrisome in the United States and Europe. High rates of virus have been found in the sand along the beaches. The reason for such viral infected waters is due to Brazil's slack laws regarding water treatment. The majority of the time, Brazil's water waste is never treated and directly dumped into the waterways. Brazil's mining industry is booming, making up 16% of the exports from the country. In 2010, there were 7,392 mine companies that reported in Brazil, not including illegal mining operations. Most mines in Brazil are surface mines, which have lasting negative effects on the landscape. Miners cut down the forest to clear the area for excavation, and when the mine's resources are depleted, the tailings are left behind, changing the landscape and habitat. A common style of mining in Brazil involves mercury, which runs off and seeps into the groundwater, causing many organisms, including the indigenous people, to ingest mercury. Cyanide, a highly toxic compound, is often used to separate gold from sediment and rock. Cyanide is supposed to be heavily monitored to prevent accidental spills, but spills in Brazil's mining industry happen more often than not. One of the largest in South America happened in Guyana, spilling 1 billion gallons of cyanide-laced water, killing plant, animal, and aquatic life.
Brazil has many health concerns, frankly because their government does not regulate many basic laws that prevent disease and pollution from occurring. To begin, many of Brazil's bodies of water are simply disgusting and filled with pollution and waste, as mentioned in the environmental problems. Many people became aware of this fact just before the Rio Summer Olympics began this year because it was announced that some of the events would take place in these trashed waters. Ultimately, this problem seemed to be more of a pollution problem than a health concern until studies on the water composition for Rio 2016 were released. The results show that in various bodies of water, swimmers and athletes who ingest just 3 teaspoons of water are almost certain to be infected with viruses that can cause stomach and respiratory illnesses, and more rarely heart and brain inflammation. This was obviously a problem for those who were to participate in the water-based events. The scarier thing, though, is that Brazilians use this water for personal use, which is extremely bad for their health. The next problem is HIV and AIDS. The issue of HIV and AIDS is largely based around the lack of healthcare support. Statistics show that 60% of the population who use the public healthcare system are limited to basic immunizations and emergency care. Another problem is the lack of doctors and nurses working in low-income areas that are rich in these diseases. If citizens had access to clean healthcare and more doctors and nurses in the area, then HIV and AIDS would not be the problem it is today. Lastly, it is known worldwide that Brazil has been affected by the Zika virus, a virus known for affecting pregnant women in particular. The virus is transmitted through mosquito bites and thus can affect large areas rapidly. As of right now, there is no vaccine for the Zika virus. Several countries that have experienced Zika outbreaks have also reported increases in people with Guillain-Barré syndrome. This syndrome can affect everyone, not just pregnant women, and causes sickness of the nervous system, immune system, and therefore damages nerve cells, which cause muscle weakness and in some cases paralysis. Brazil is especially being hit hard by this virus because of the numerous people living in areas where mosquito populations are extremely high. Also, Brazil's climate is the perfect place for mosquitoes to thrive and have easy human targets to inject. Because of all these factors, Zika has put on alert number 2 in the country of Brazil by the Centers for Disease Control. I hope you learned something and thanks for watching.